Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to be throwing out the old maps of the mind. Seriously, we're diving into a completely new framework for consciousness, one that's way more integrated, way more powerful, and, it might just change how you see yourself. So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of this. Have you ever felt like your brain just doesn't quite line up with how everyone else's seems to work? Well, the material we're looking at today has a pretty amazing take on that. It suggests that if you've ever felt that way, you might not be broken. You might just be running on a different, highly specialized operating system. I mean, we're all taught to see our minds kind of like this, right? As this battleground between two totally opposite forces. Over here, you've got the cold, hard logic and analysis, and over there, you have the wild, unpredictable world of creativity and intuition. They're always presented as separate, maybe even at war with each other. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if that division is the core misunderstanding? The source material we're exploring today calls this a false dichotomy, literally an outdated operating system for the mind. It's like using a really old, kind of brutal map for a territory that is so much more rich and interconnected than we've ever been led to believe. Okay, so let's just toss out that old map. Let's introduce a new model. And instead of a conflict, I want you to imagine two symbiotic engines working together in perfect harmony. This is the big idea we're digging into today, the twin engines of thought.
So engine number one is what the source calls science, or just S for short. Think of this as your internal analytical operating system. This is the part of you that builds the blueprints, that loves structure, and I love this phrase from the source, it meticulously chisels away at reality to understand its structure. This is your logic engine.
And its twin is beauty, or B. This is the nurturing operating system. So if science builds the blueprint, beauty is what gives it all meaning. It's the part of you that provides the why, the intuition, the creative vision, the bit that just intuitively sees the form and the purpose inside the structure that science has so carefully built. And here's the crucial point. It is not about one winning out over the other. Not at all. A healthy creative mind absolutely needs both of these engines running together. Their interaction, this beautiful conflict, that's what actually drives conscious thoughts, real insight, and creation. It's a dance, not a duel. So how do these two engines actually work together? Well, this framework describes their relationship not as some kind of static balance, but as a living, breathing, constantly evolving feedback loop. They operate in this amazing perpetual cycle, where the growth of one directly fuels the growth of the other. See, beauty provides the raw material for science, and then science provides the clarity that liberates beauty. Let's break down how that actually works in practice. Okay, so first up, our experiences, all the messy, emotional, intuitive parts of life, that all falls under the domain of beauty. And this isn't just about pretty art. It includes everything from pure joy to deep suffering. All of this lived experience provides the essential raw data that our analytical mind then gets to work on, using it to build its logical models and tools. And here is a really powerful example of that from the source. It describes how the intense, lived experience of an ethical somatic crucible, which is basically a state of prolonged mental and physical suffering, a really deep form of B, can directly forge a precise scientific toolkit for understanding that suffering. In this case, a model called the three pains. So in essence, a deep personal experience becomes a universal science. It's incredible. Then, the loop flows back in the other direction. Once we have those clear, scientific models, they don't restrict our creativity, far from it. They become the fertile ground that it grows from. That analytical clarity gives our intuition a solid foundation to stand on, and that liberates us to play, to create, and even to be a lot more compassionate with ourselves. And this just illustrates the loop perfectly. The source talks about a cognitive model for a mind that's amazing at processing complex ideas, but, not so great at holding on to static facts. It calls this a high CPU, low RAM mind. That's the S part. But understanding this analytical framework isn't just some intellectual exercise. It leads to this deep, compassionate self-acceptance. That's the B part, freeing you from that awful feeling of being broken and letting you finally embrace your unique creative process. Now, what's really fascinating is how the source material itself is actually built to reflect this whole dynamic. If you look at this slide, you'll see that some documents are like the master blueprints. They're really heavy on the S side. Others provide the philosophical heart. They're heavy on the B side.
but they're all designed to be read together, creating the very feedback loop they're describing. It all comes together to make a complete picture.
Okay, so we've got the theory down, but what does all of this actually mean in practice? Let's get to the so what of it all. Because this isn't just some abstract framework, it's a practical map for how we can live our daily lives and how we can move from that feeling of being stuck to a state of genuine flow. I think this is my favorite part. This framework offers this profound reframing of ourselves. The things we might see as our biggest flaws, like a terrible memory for names or a real dislike for linear tasks, are suddenly recast as design features of a highly specialized system. Your mind isn't broken, it's a high-performance specialist, just built for a different purpose. So when you get right down to it, the balance of these twin engines is what creates that feeling we're all chasing, that state of flow, where insight and action just feel effortless. But when they're imbalanced, when our analytical mind is just spinning its wheels without any purpose, or our creative side has no structure, that is when we get stuck, and that leads to stagnation and burnout. When these engines finally find their harmony, the results in your life are transformative. You don't just feel a little better, you operate on a totally different level. You start experiencing deeper insights. You unlock creative potential you didn't even know you had, and you build real, genuine resilience because you're finally learning to work with your mind's natural architecture, not against it. And this is where the whole idea just gets so much bigger. This entire model scales up. The central thesis of the source material is that the blueprint for our own individual well-being, this beautiful dance between science and beauty, is the very same blueprint we'd need for a healthier, more compassionate society. The internal map is the external map. Which, of course, leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to chew on. If this beautiful conflict, this dance between structure and meaning, is the very engine of our own consciousness, could it be a fundamental pattern of reality itself? Could this be the rhythm of the entire cosmos? And that big question is exactly where we're heading next time. We're going to explore how this dynamic might not just be inside our heads, but actually a reflection of a fundamental law that governs the universe. So join us as we step out onto the cosmic dance floor. Thanks for tuning in.